In 930 years of documented life, Adam witnessed the birth of entire nations, saw his children multiply, and spread his lineage to distant lands. But a disturbing detail of this story remains hidden between the lines of Scripture: the complete silence about Eve's death. While the Bible meticulously records the age and time of death of virtually all patriarchs, the fate of humanity's first woman appears to have been erased from the sacred pages. Recent archaeological discoveries in caves near Mount Seir have revealed ancient inscriptions that could completely change our understanding of this story. Aramaic texts dating back thousands of years suggest a surprising version of the events that followed the expulsion from Eden. What few know is that ancient Jewish traditions, preserved in manuscripts found in the Dead Sea, indicate that Eve may have lived much longer than we imagine. These texts describe a woman who, after her initial transgression, dedicated centuries to the search for redemption, developing deep knowledge about the healing properties of plants, knowledge that she would have passed down through generations. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of this story is what ancient Hebrew writings call the paradox of Eve, a unique condition that would have affected only the first woman after the fall. According to these texts, his original connection with the Tree of Life created a temporal anomaly in his existence, causing his death to become a much more complex event than simply ceasing to exist. This isn't just a story about who died first. It is a narrative that questions our own understanding of life, death, and the nature of human existence. In the upcoming revelations, you'll discover why modern scholars are completely re-evaluating their theories about Eve's fate, and how this ancient story may hold the key to understanding one of the greatest mysteries of our own mortality. What we found leads us to a surprising conclusion that challenges everything we thought we knew about humanity's earliest chapters. And by the end of this journey, you will understand why Eve's fate may be the best-kept secret in ancient scripture. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to always be well-informed about real biblical stories. To truly understand the mystery surrounding Eve's death, we need to go back not to Eden, but to the exact moment when mortality was introduced into the human experience. Sacred texts reveal to us that before the fall, both Adam and Eve existed in a state of physical perfection. Their bodies were different from ours, immune to aging and deterioration. The pivotal moment in this story takes place not in the garden, but on the eastern plains of Eden, where the couple settled after their expulsion. There, facing a completely new reality, they witnessed for the first time the concept of death through a traumatic event, the murder of Abel by Cain. This moment marks a profound shift in Eve's awareness of her own mortality. Ancient manuscripts, especially the Qumran scrolls, suggest that Eve developed a unique relationship with death after this event. Unlike Adam, who remained focused on cultivating the land, Eve began an intense spiritual journey. She went on to collect and preserve knowledge about life and death, creating what some scholars call Eve's Book of Generations, a lost text that supposedly contained profound revelations about the nature of human mortality. What makes this mystery even more intriguing are the records found on ancient Sumerian tablets, which speak of a primordial woman who discovered the secret to prolonging life. These tablets describe healing techniques and longevity rituals that correspond extraordinarily well with the practices attributed to Eve in apocryphal texts. But the most disturbing element of this mystery emerges when we analyze the genealogical records of the time. While Adam's age and death are clearly documented, Eve appears to exist in a kind of historical limbo. His name continues to appear in reports long after the period in which Adam would have died, but always in an enigmatic and indirect way. This lack of definitive record of his death does not appear to be a simple historical omission. Modern scholars have begun to suspect that there may be a much deeper purpose behind this scriptural silence, a purpose that is about to be revealed. Eden represented much more than a paradisiacal garden. It was a quantum environment where the natural laws we know did not apply in the same way. Recent discoveries in ancient Hebrew texts suggest that time flowed differently there. One day in Eden could be equivalent to 1,000 years outside of it, creating a temporal distortion that directly affected the physical nature of Adam and Eve. In-depth studies of the original Hebrew texts reveal that when God created Eve from Adam's rib, he didn't just form another human being, he shared a vital essence. The Hebrew term used, tselah, not only means rib, but can also be translated as side or ground essence. This division created a unique biological singularity, two beings sharing the same original life force. This vital connection had dramatic consequences after the expulsion from Eden. When the couple was expelled, their bodies began a transformation process never before documented. The perfect, immortal DNA they possessed began to deteriorate, but in different ways in each one. Adam, formed from the dust of the earth, began a linear aging process. Eve, however, created from already living matter, showed a completely different aging pattern. Texts found in the Qumran caves describe that Eve retained characteristics of Eden that Adam had lost. His connection with the tree of life, even after expulsion, left marks on his physical constitution. While Adam aged steadily, Eve experienced cycles of cellular renewal that the ancients called paradise reflexes. This phenomenon created what modern scholars call the Eden paradox. The closer Adam got to his physical death, the more intense his spiritual connection became with Eve, who seemed to resist aging in a supernatural way. Ancient records suggest that Eve could feel the changes in Adam's body as if they were her own, creating a unique symbiosis between life and death. The paradox was intensified because, even after the fall, Eve's body still carried traces of Eden's original immortality, a condition that placed her in an intermediate state between mortal and immortal, challenging our modern understanding of life and death. The true first death was not physical. It was a catastrophic event that happened in the spiritual realm, long before any heartbeat ceased. Jewish mystical texts reveal that at the exact moment Eve bit into the forbidden fruit, an irreversible transformation occurred in her spiritual essence. The original Hebrew text uses the word mut, MVT, which means a progressive death, indicating that the process began instantly. Ancient records found in caves near the Dead Sea describe that Eve experienced a sensation that no other human being has ever felt: the abrupt transition from immortality to mortality. His spirit, which previously lived in perfect harmony with the divine, suffered a fragmentation. This rupture was so profound that it altered his own perception of reality. Colors lost their original brilliance, celestial sounds became inaudible, and direct communication with the divine was interrupted. But the most fascinating aspect of this spiritual death was its ripple effect. When Eve offered the fruit to Adam, she was not just sharing food, she was imparting an entirely new spiritual condition. Jewish esoteric writings suggest that Eve, in the moments between her own transgression and Adam's, existed in a unique state. She was the only human being to experience alone the weight of spiritual mortality. This existential loneliness lasted only a few moments, but it left eternal marks on his psyche. Scholars of the sacred texts have identified that the term used to describe his condition at that time, ayin, in, means a type of emptiness that transcends normal human understanding. Eve experienced a form of death that went beyond physical separation. It was a death of the very divine essence that dwelt within her. Documents recently translated from Aramaic suggest that this spiritual death created a unique phenomenon. Eve developed an extraordinary ability to perceive the spiritual world even after her fall. This heightened sensitivity allowed her to understand the magnitude of her transformation in a way that Adam never could. She became a bridge between two worlds, the spiritual and the physical, carrying with her the living memory of what it meant to be truly immortal. Recent archaeological excavations in the Mesopotamian Valley have revealed cuneiform tablets that present a surprising narrative about Eve's fate. Dating from approximately 3000 BC, these tablets contain what may be the earliest extra-biblical reference to the first woman. The texts, written in ancient Sumerian, describe a mother of the living who continued to influence humanity long after what would be considered a normal lifespan. Even more intriguing discoveries have emerged from excavations at Ebla in modern Syria. Fragments of administrative texts mention a female figure revered as she who knows the herbs of life, with descriptions that correspond precisely to ancient traditions about Eve. These records date from periods much later than Adam's documented death, suggesting her prolonged survival. The most convincing evidence comes from the Dead Sea Scrolls, specifically document 4Q265, which contains a previously untranslated passage. This text describes a unique phenomenon. After Adam's death, Eve entered a state that the ancients called Tanim, a condition between life and death where the body remained unchanged for decades. Linguistic analyses of early Hebrew texts have revealed an intriguing pattern. While Adam's death is described using the verb mut, complete death, references to Eve often employ shamar, a term implying transformation or transition, not a definitive end. This linguistic distinction suggests that the ancients considered Eve's fate fundamentally different from Adam's. Genealogical records found in ancient Babylonian libraries mention a primordial crone who continued to counsel generations of her descendants long after the period attributed to Adam's life. These texts include specific details about medicinal practices and botanical knowledge that, according to tradition, could only have originated with Eve. Inscriptions discovered in the caves of Qumran present a fascinating detail: descriptions of a woman who bore physical marks of Eden, an unearthly glow to her skin, and a deep knowledge of ancient languages. These descriptions continue to appear in texts dating back hundreds of years after Adam's death was recorded, challenging our traditional understanding of biblical chronology. Deep analysis of Jewish mystical texts reveals a revolutionary theory about the nature of the connection between Adam and Eve. The Hebrew term Ezer Kenegdo, traditionally translated as fit helper, actually suggests something much deeper: a quantum complementarity between two souls. This connection was not just spiritual, but manifested on a physical and molecular level. Ancient Kabbalistic studies propose that when God separated Eve from Adam, he not only removed a rib, but divided a single consciousness into two distinct but eternally intertwined entities. This phenomenon, known as Echad Mishpacha, family unit, created a unique biological bond. Its cells responded to each other even at a distance, a phenomenon that modern science has begun to understand through the theory of quantum entanglement. Manuscripts found in Nag Hammadi describe how this connection intensified after the expulsion from Eden. When Adam experienced pain, Eve felt it in her own body. When Eve cried, the texts say, inexplicable tears appeared in Adam's eyes. This physical synchronicity became even more pronounced as Adam's death approached. The most surprising discovery comes from a recently deciphered Aramaic text that describes a unique phenomenon. As Adam approached his final days, Eve's body began to manifest an unprecedented process of transformation. His cells seemed to resist aging, as if they were compensating for the accelerated deterioration of his divine complement. This transcendental bond would explain why there is no definitive record of Eve's death. The theory suggests that her physical existence was so intrinsically linked to Adam that even after his death, she continued to exist in an altered state, keeping alive the vital essence they shared. The texts describe this phenomenon as Neshama Echad, a single breath divided between two beings. Linguistic evidence in the original texts suggests that this connection was not just metaphorical. The term used to describe their union, Basar Echad, one flesh, indicates a fusion at the most fundamental level of existence. This primordial union created a temporal paradox. While Adam was subject to linear time, Eve existed simultaneously in multiple temporal dimensions, a condition that defied the very laws of mortality. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to always be well informed about real biblical stories. The true revelation about Eve's destiny emerges when we connect all the evidence. She never experienced death in the same way as Adam. Recent analyses of Jewish apocalyptic texts reveal something extraordinary. Eve exists in a state the ancients called Olam Haba, simultaneously present in multiple dimensions of existence. Newly discovered documents in the Judean desert present a revolutionary theory. When Eve ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, she not only gained knowledge of good and evil, but also absorbed a part of the tree's very essence. This absorption fundamentally altered his biological makeup, creating what ancient texts call a nefesh chaya, a living soul in perpetual transformation. The key to understanding this mystery lies in God's own words in Eden. When he said, "You will certainly die," he used a unique Hebrew construction, mot tamut. This phrase, applied to Adam, indicated certain physical death. However, when directed at Eve, the text suggests a radically different interpretation. Her death would be a continuous transformation. Manuscripts found at Qumran reveal that Eve did not die in the traditional sense. She transcended. His body, which carried the genetic memory of Eden, underwent a unique metamorphosis. While Adam returned to dust, Eve entered a state that the ancients called Malach Adamah, a being between the earthly and the heavenly. This revelation explains why there is no record of her death. Eve continues to exist in an altered state, her essence perpetuated through the generations. The texts suggest that each woman carries a fragment of Eve's original DNA activated during pregnancy, a phenomenon that modern science has begun to observe through mitochondrial DNA, transmitted exclusively through the maternal lineage. The most shocking discovery comes from a recently translated scroll that suggests that Eve not only outlived Adam, but continues to influence humanity through a phenomenon known as Zera Chaya, the living seed. His consciousness, transformed by the unique experience in Eden, transcended the physical limitations of death, existing in a state that challenges our modern understanding of life and death. This revelation not only solves the ancient mystery, but opens up a new perspective on the nature of human existence and our connection with the divine. What began as a simple investigation into who died first turned out to be a revolutionary discovery about the very nature of human existence. Eva's story is not just about death, it is about transformation, transcendence, and the perpetuation of life across dimensions we have only begun to understand. This ancient narrative carries a profound message for our time. Death, as we know it, is just a transition. Eve's legacy lives on not only in our mitochondrial DNA, but in the very essence of what it means to be human. Each birth, each new generation, carries with it an echo of that first transformation in Eden. The findings presented revolutionize our understanding not only of the biblical narrative, but of our own mortality. Eve did not die before or after Adam. She transcended the linear concept of death, existing in a state that connects the past to the future, the physical to the spiritual. Its story is not one of loss, but of continuous evolution. The scriptural silence about his death was not an omission. It was a deliberate clue about his unique transformation. While Adam represented our physical nature, returning to dust, Eve personified our capacity for transcendence, our connection to the divine that persists beyond bodily limitations. This understanding has profound implications for our own journey. Each of us carries not only the genes, but also the potential for transformation that Eve first experienced. His story teaches us that death is not an end, but a door to different states of existence. The true meaning of this revelation is not in determining who died first, but in understanding that physical death is only one dimension of our existence. Eve shows us that our deepest essence, that part that knew Eden, continues to resonate through the ages, influencing each new generation. Thus we conclude not with a definitive answer as to who died first, but with a transformative understanding. Through Eve, we all remain connected to that first moment of divine consciousness in Eden. His story is not over. It continues to unfold within each of us, a living testament to the eternal nature of the human spirit.